All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Adams Brothers Podcast. Happy Monday to each and every last one of you out there in Facebook and YouTube land. Welcome back to the award winning Adams Brothers Podcast. We're joined here this afternoon with attorney Kaysia Earley, Esquire. She is a candidate for Congress in the 22nd Congressional District, and her name will be on the August 18th primary ballot. So we'd like to welcome Miss Kaysia Earley, Esquire, back to the Adams Brothers Podcast. Welcome back, ma'am.
Thank you for having me. To both the Adams brothers, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm grateful that you're utilizing your platform to educate the voters. This is absolutely important that we not only tell them to vote, but tell them a little bit about ourselves so that they can make a wise, informed, and educated choice.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said. So, as I mentioned, you were here back in, I believe, 2022, and you're not a stranger to our podcast, and we just happy to have you back here. So, for those people that didn't uh, uh, catch you when you were on our podcast back in 2022, why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewers and the people out in Facebook and YouTube land that's watching right now?
Hi, thank you for that. So, my name is Kaysia Earley. I am a Proverbs 31 woman. I like to live after those many attributes. I'm a wife of 22 years. I'm a mother of four. I'm an educator, community servant, criminal defense attorney, and just give back. I'm also an owner of my nonprofit Seeds of Manna. And I am, of course, as you stated, running for Congress in the 22nd Congressional District. And I'm looking forward to not only educating the voters about what happened to District 22 and how this came about, but why you should also be informed and concerned about the direction of our current administration.
Okay. All right. So, we're going to be asking you some questions about the 22nd congressional district and Congress and everything. And we know that recently the maps were redrawn, and
Hmm.
now that the 22nd congressional district now has parts of Palm Beach County in it, and it used to have some cities in Broward, and they took it out of Broward and put a lot of those cities in Palm Beach County. So the 22nd congressional district, 22, is considered a Republican leaning district right now. So why should independent and Republican voters choose you over a Republican candidate in November
Well,
or in the
first,
primary?
all voters, whether you're Republican,
Mhm.
Democrat, or MPA, you should be concerned about this current administration. You should be concerned about what your governor has done. So essentially, what they did is what's called midterm redistricting, or as you know, it's gerrymandering. They
Mm-hmm.
claim that they redrew it for Republican leaning, but I'm going to push back on that and say that this was discriminatory because I had the opportunity to travel 5,500 square miles of District 22. So it includes six cities in Broward. You have Parkland, Coral Springs, Weston, Davie, parts of Plantation on the west side, and Sunrise on the west side. Before I get to the other four counties, let me explain to you why I keep emphasizing the west side. They claim that it's Republican leaning, but you got to look at the zip codes and you also have to look at the housing values and who actually lives within District 22 in Broward County. It's mostly made up of white Americans. Why is this important? Because if we keep saying it was Republican leaning redistricting, it takes out what they really intended to do was to shuffle all of the black homeowners, black residents into District 20. And that
Mm-hmm.
is concerning. How can we trust our government if they're cheating to win? Now, let's stop there for a second. Then they went north to Palm Beach. All of those cities in Palm Beach, with the exception of a few cities in Palm Beach, are majority white districts. Then you head west to Hendry County. Now, that is predominantly black, but it's black with low voter turnout, low voter registration. That's why they included that in there because they're not concerned. And then you go all the way west to Marco Island, Naples, multi-million dollar homes. Since I've been in this race, I visited every city within District 22 because number one, I wanted to learn the type of cities. It's a brand new district. And two, I was concerned because when I traveled within District 22, uh, it's diametrically opposed. Their views, they couldn't be furthest away of what concerns them and what's important to them. For example, Marco Island, you're talking about a vacation area, multi-million dollar homes. The majority of these homes are within gated communities, right? Their
Hmm.
concerns are totally different. They care about beach erosion or rising costs of premiums. But then you go east back towards Immokalee, Pahokee, South Bay, Belglade. And Immokalee, all they want is a hospital.
Farmer.
I spoke to a resident and he said his father died because he called 911 and it took the ambulance 1 hour to get to the nearest hospital. All they want is an urgent care.
Yeah.
And then I continue to travel this district. And my concern is the fact that our governor redrew this district, not on an off election, he redrew it 2 months before the qualifying period. And this is what everyone needs to understand. I didn't find out all of this until I began to run and realize the intricate drawings of the map. It's not a square, it's not a salamander. It is, let's carve out all of these zip codes. So Republicans, you should be concerned. If you're affiliating yourself with a party that's cheating, robbing, stealing, what does that say about you? If you're not speaking up, you're a part of the problem.
Yes.
And I agree. Yeah. And it's happening a lot all across the country in every state. Uh, they're boldly redrawing districts and and taking history out of the out of schools. I mean, it's just a lot of things going on right now uh, across this country. Let's talk a little bit about crime and public safety. As an attorney and trial lawyer, um, what do you believe is the biggest problem with America's criminal justice system, and what specific federal law would you change to address it?
I'm so glad you asked that. First of all, I'm a criminal defense attorney. As a criminal defense attorney, I've tried over 100 trials to verdict. So let me qualify my qualifications. To give you an idea of how many trials that is, typically in a lifetime of any litigator who's trying criminal cases, they may try 50, 60 at max, right? I tried 100 in less than 10 years. So when I tell you I have a thorough understanding of the Constitution and criminal law, that is because of the cases that I had to deal with.
Mhm.
I've seen several problems. I'm going to give you my top three. Number one, police integrity. Why do I say that? Because officers are supposed to serve and protect. And what I've been seeing is, for example, if I send an officer subpoena, I expect you to show up to my subpoena and make sure that I have the opportunity to ask you questions under oath. Oftentimes, officers would feel like they're above the law. They would not show up to my subpoena. And typically, if a civilian didn't show up, I would file what's called a rule of show cause, drag them into court, and they would have to go before the judge and explain why. And I remember when an officer didn't show up, I did the same thing because basically you're a civilian too. You're not above the law. And I never forget when we got to court, the chief showed up as well. And he said, you know, in all my years, I never had an attorney to file a rule to show cause against an officer. They gave him a courtesy to do it again. And I said, well, he didn't give me the courtesy of telling me he wasn't going to show up. I said, he's held to the same standard as everyone else. So when talk about police integrity, I've seen a lot of officers who are power driven will disrespect people on the side of the road for a simple traffic stop and just irritate them to the point where they arrest them for resisting without violence when you could have simply given them a ticket. So we want to ensure that we bridge the gap between law enforcement and civilians so a simple traffic stop will not turn into a death notice. Number two, what I see in the criminal justice system, we need a better way to treat our juveniles. There's no reason why if a juvenile gets into a fight at school, they're arrested and now they have a criminal record. And what this system doesn't understand is when a juvenile is arrested, there's over 40,000 collateral consequences tied to one arrest. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're arrested and you have a conviction, you don't qualify for financial aid. You don't qualify for financial aid. You can't pay for college. You can't pay for college. You can't secure a degree. So can you imagine all of those issues just for one adjudication? It should be diversion programs for first-time offenders, misdemeanor crimes, because back in the day, I grew up in the inner city. You have a fight, you get suspended for 3 days, you come back. Now you have a fight, you get expelled. These are just harsh laws on juveniles. Juveniles should not be treated as many adults. Their brain hasn't even formulated until they reach the age of 24. So the last thing I would address in the criminal justice system would be mandatory sentencing. A lot of people don't know this, but in the state of Florida, we have laws that require mandatory sentencing if you commit a type of crime. It
Right.
leaves no discretion for the court. And why is this important? I tried a case one time. The judge listened to the facts. It was a case of self-defense, but unfortunately, the jury found my client guilty. Because there's mandatory sentencing, the judge had no discretion and had to sentence him to the minimum mandatory. If the judge had discretion, he's the one who sat through the case. He could have said, you know what? I know you deserve, based under the law, 25, but because I have discretion, I'm gonna give you 15 years. You might say, hey, that's a difference of 10 years. 1 day in jail is too long. We need to change our rules. So I would push forth to end minimum mandatory sentencing and leave the sentencing up to the judge who sat through the entire trial and heard the full story and not just a police report.
Well said. Well said, Wayne.
Yes, Miss Earley, what are the 3 issues you will focus on in your first year of office when elected?
I will focus it on day one because I've already drafted 3 pieces of legislation. I'm
Mhm.
the only lawyer in this race. And the 3 issue, and why is that important? I'm going to answer your question, I promise you. But
Sure.
a congresswoman drafts legislation into law. A lawyer interprets the law.
Mhm.
As a law student, I had to learn the law. So I already have access to statutes and I'm able to draft the law before I get into office, which I already did. And it's 3 pieces of legislation that I'm going to push through on day one or start to present it. Number one, TPS. This is
Mhm.
extremely important because over 350,000 Haitians, I'm not even talking about the other immigrants right now,
Mhm.
350,000 Haitians and counting live in Florida alone. That's immigrants. Now, out of Florida, in my district, South Florida, 150,000 Haitians. Why is that important? Because these immigrants came in, they were vetted properly, they came into the United States through the temporary protected status due to the uprising or the what's going on in their country, whether it was the hurricane in 2012 or whether it's what's going on with their president assassination and the gangs. Haiti is not even safe for America to go there. The travel advisory is red, don't go there. So my question to this administration is, what was the purpose? Did you just wake up one morning and say, you know what? Let's just end TPS. They have yet to give us a reason. So what I'm going to do is attempt to overturn and have a clearer pathway to citizenship. So part of my legislation will modernize immigration. A lot of people don't know this. I'm an immigration attorney as well.
Mhm.
Immigration, it takes so long to secure your green card. It's paperwork after paperwork. They're slow as a snail because it's
Mhm.
not modernized to the point where it can be expedited. And these are the same standard forms. Why does it take so long at the detriment to the people who have not secured their paper? These are taxpayers. And what America's not going to realize until afterwards, Haitian immigrants and all the immigrants, the working immigrants, contribute to over $2 billion in work wages and over $110 million in taxes from those wages. So we're going to have a labor shortage because Americans are not taking those jobs. We're talking about farming, nursing, healthcare, right? The
Mhm.
second piece of legislation would be the Senior Care Dignity Act, and that will cover seniors who have worked all their lives to pour into Social Security, which, by the way, they're saying it may expire in 2036 or 2033, who cannot afford to live on their own, who cannot afford the rising cost of healthcare premiums or drugs. I've witnessed myself that the premiums and deductible for or co-pays for prescription has risen, and also COLA. The cost of living adjustment has not only increased by 1.6%, I believe. That's $54.
Yeah.
That's nothing. It's not it's not rising fast enough to account for inflation and the rising cost of living. So what we're proposing are tax credits for either family members that's taking care of their loved ones, or increase some type of tax credit for the seniors so that they're not penny pitching, that they're living their best lives while
Mhm.
they're retired. And the last key legislation would be to address it. I grouped it all together because everyone talks about rising cost of living. We cannot regulate on a federal level local landlords being slumlords and constantly increasing their prices, but we can work with the local legislator. But in the meantime, while we try to push these bills through, they need immediate relief. And since we're going to be coming into a next tax season, how about we give grants or tax breaks so that we can stimulate the economy with the extra flow or money that these citizens will be having. So those are my three main focus, and that goes across the board for District 22.
Okay. And how will you measure success in your role as a member of Congress?
My success will be measured by how many bills I drafted. I don't want to say were approved because, as you know, usually we may have good intentions in drafting and actually
Mhm.
doing the work and listening to the residents, but it depends on who has control, right? Or
Mhm.
who has um, a greater position. So my success will be measured: did I listen to the people? And does this legislation reflect their needs and not what I think they need? And the only way I'm going to know that is this, doing the same thing I did on this campaign. I have to go city to city, county to county, and actually meeting the residents and hearing from their needs, and then actually triaging those, because you can't. Everybody's need is not an emergency, right? Or
Mhm.
everyone's need is
Mhm.
not as important, although they believe it's important. So I have to take the most important needs, address those needs, and work my way on down. That's
Okay.
how I would
And
measure success.
okay. And how do you propose balancing economic growth and protecting workers' rights? And how do you actually feel about workers' rights here in this country and in the state of Florida?
Well, first of all, thank God for unions, right? I
Hmm.
used to work for the
Yeah.
federal government, and I had a grievance with the federal government, and my union represented me because I wasn't sure if this was I knew it was discrimination, but I wasn't sure how to navigate it. And had it not been for the union speaking up for me and having that ability to speak up, then my rights as an employee who was discriminated against would not have been protected. We have to protect our employees first. And once employees feel appreciated,
Mhm.
it's a trickle down effect. I mean, we can't treat our employees like robots. Like um, everybody wants to feel wanted or want to feel as if they're contributing to what they're doing. But
Mhm.
we are facing a crisis because what we're seeing is our taxes are rising, and I'm talking about homeowners. Our
Yeah.
premiums are rising,
Mhm.
gas is rising, food costs obviously has risen, right? And then everything has gone up except for wages.
Mhm.
So we've been crying. These prices haven't just gone up in the past administration. It's
Mhm.
been going up for over a decade.
They have.
And we've been hearing the same. We know what the problem is. And unfortunately, I have not seen sufficient legislation to stimulate the economy for the American people. And it's going to come to a point where the American people are going to get frustrated. And hopefully that doesn't show in the numbers. You still need to vote, you still need to come out. But my goal is to again, we have to provide immediate relief
Mhm.
to the residents while we figure this out. Meaning, while we try to pass some legislation for long-term relief, they need immediate relief now.
Yeah. And also, you named a litany of things affecting the community. One of them too is how will you work to improve the quality of healthcare in our community?
I'm a strong proponent of universal health care. Um, Everyone should have the ability to not only have sufficient health care, but afford health care. And right now, what I'm seeing is, and I'm talking from a personal perspective. One of my children, had to require surgery, right? And then when I saw what that deductible was, and I'm talking about in the thousands, I have insurance. I was blown away because I said, "Are you sure? Did you run my insurance?" I could not believe that to get the surgery, and this wasn't a cosmetic, this was a medically necessary surgery. I'm paying a lot of money for my insurance, and you still have to pay thousands. Another thing that needs to be regulated after the surgery, and again, I'm finding out all of this because I experienced this. And if I experienced this, I know other working Americans have experienced this. There needs to be a clear line when it comes to medical procedures dealing with third-party workers, doctors, contractors, because here's what happens. You go, whether you go for a visit, a surgical procedure, you may have 10 different doctors, from the nurse to the assistant to the surgeon. You thought you had one bill, and now you have 12 other bills coming. So there needs to be, obviously, I'm a strong proponent for universal health care, but there
Mhm.
needs to be more sight or insight on how can we have a better understanding of what the bill is going to cost up front and not be surprised on the back end.
Okay, Daryl.
I heard you mention earlier, just a little while ago, about insurance. So let's talk a little bit more about property insurance. Uh, Florida homeowners are being crushed by property insurance costs. I know I am when I look at my property
I
insurance,
am too.
and it's going up, and $5,000-6,000 every year. They're jumping up $1,000. I'm like, well, what are they doing with this money? You know, we haven't really had any hurricanes here
Yeah.
in South Florida. You know, and yeah, I know it. The companies, they cover all of Florida, but my insurance is just going up and rising and rising and rising and rising. Something has to be done. But what can Congress realistically do about that, and what responsibility should Florida's state government bear?
You know what? You raise a great question because I'm with you on that. Not only insurance premiums, but also our taxes, right? Our property taxes. And our concern is, where is all of this money going and why is it continuously rising? Especially when we had a long break of no natural disasters, no flooding. You know, shouldn't it remain consistent, or should it go down a little bit? We need to have stronger regulation. And I talked about this at a town hall because one of the concerns that the people in Immokalee had was they're so close to Okeechobee that some of their homes are considered a flood zone, but it never flooded before. And their concern is, why are our premiums rising? We need to continue to regulate these rising costs of premiums, oversight, question these privatized insurance companies as to what is their justification, right? If they don't have any oversight, if no one's bugging them, then they're going to do whatever they please. But
Right.
we can make them justify why, what catastrophic natural disasters occurred to justify this increase in premiums. I think if there's no oversight, if no one is regulating, they're free to do what they want to do, just like slumlords, right? I went to, I believe it's Pahokee or Belglade. Their concerns, because there's not a lot of homeowners, but there are a lot of renters. And their concern is, hey, what can we do to stop these landlords from increasing the rent? And they're not talking about, $50 a year. They're talking about $400 a year, and they can't afford it. But they're in a limbo. They can't afford to move out because every other landlord wants first, last, and a security deposit. But then where do they go? So who's going to fight for us to ensure that these landlords are not taking exceeding rent, knowing that we have no other choice? Regulation, and make sure that we have oversight to ensure that our residents aren't being, stiffed out of the last bit of money that they have or trying to hold on to.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Let's talk about federal spending. America has a massive national debt. What federal programs or spending would you be willing to cut, even if those cuts are politically unpopular?
Well, I talked about this on the campaign trail because a lot of people are asking, the main question is, why are we spending not millions, but billions in foreign aid? I'm not even talking about the wars yet. They're talking about foreign aid. And my response to that is, I'm a strong proponent that we should take care of home first and then take care of others. It's just like when you're on an airplane. They say, if the air pressure drops, you take care of yourself
Self
first,
first.
then you can help others. So, first of all, we're in a massive debt and we're constantly spending, and we're not utilizing that money to pour back into our own economy. We're not utilizing that money to stimulate, and we're not using that money to provide relief for citizens. And then our citizens are getting angry because you watch the news and you see, okay, now we send 2.5 billion to this country, or we're spending money on this war. I believe that we should help countries that need the assistance, especially, and every country should defend themselves or have the right to defend themselves. But I do believe government spending has gone unchecked for quite some time, or even if it's gone checked, once they discover that there was an excessive amount of spending, then what is the recourse? What is the punishment? So I'm a strong proponent of taking care of home,
Yeah.
decreasing the amount of foreign aid, and decreasing the amount that we're utilizing on foreign wars, because we need to take care of our
I see.
veterans here in the US.
We Miss Earley, we have a question from the audience. They're out there listening right now and they're watching right now. Let's put this question up on. It's from Patricia Saunders, and she says that, do you
Yes,
support reducing foreign aid and redirecting more of that money towards making healthcare affordable here in the United States? That's from
before,
Patricia
yeah,
Saunders.
that's what I was just talking about. Foreign
Yeah.
aid, whether that
Yep.
includes weapons and or aid in natural disasters. We need to have universal health care and universal child care. When I went up to Hendry County, one of their number one concerns, school is going back in session, and a mother has two young children. They're too young to attend school, and her concern is childcare for the two, she said, costs more than her rent. So she's in
Mhm.
a limbo. We should have, so can you imagine grants? And we're only asking for the first 3 years because they have pre-K and kindergarten.
Mhm.
Give parents the first 3 years. I don't care how much you make in terms of course, not a multimillionaire, but in terms of, there's right now we have middle class and low class, and those lines are blurring right now. So absolutely, I would definitely support a piece of legislation that will not totally not spend foreign aid, but pull back and pour it back into our community.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Mhm. Yes, Miss Earley. How will you handle pressure from party leadership if it conflicts your with the needs of your constituents?
My constituents come first because, first of all, if they have a need and I
Mhm.
represent them and I don't meet that need so that I can have favor with a colleague, they're going to vote me out. I'm not there to make
Yeah.
friends. Listen, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I
Mhm.
advocate for a living. When I'm in trial, I tell the prosecutor up front, especially when my client is next to me, I say, we're not talking about, little talk. I say, because my client is standing next to me, sitting next to me, and my
Mhm.
client knows that you want him in jail. How does that look that I'm keying with you? So I make it known from the break. I'm not there to make friends. My loyalty is to my client in court. My loyalty is to the residents of District 22 in Congress. And this is what I want all the voters, even if you're not in my district. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure you know someone who is. If y'all know that you all are in a state of emergency, there's only one other candidate in this race. This is not the time to pick the most friendliest one, the least the more passive one, because passive doesn't cut it. I didn't get my not guilty verdicts, and I wasn't named top attorney because I was nice. I was named top attorney because I had an aggressive cross examination to get to the truth, to impeach the witness that decided to walk into court and lie on my client, knowing that my client was facing life. And I was able to be aggressive and assertive and get to the truth and get exactly what I wanted. I'm the only lawyer right? And one thing about politics, I know you didn't ask it, but please ask it
Yeah.
about corporate PAC money. And how
Yes.
do I feel about overturning Citizens United? And I'll tell you what it is. Oh, you asked? Thank you for asking. Let me tell you, ladies
Mhm.
and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know, in every election, corporate PACs can pour millions of dollars into a candidate. They can pour millions of dollars into their puppet, who they want, versus the most qualified person. And what happens is the person who's running a grassroots campaign that has little to no donations typically lose. Not because they're not qualified, it's because they're not as visible. You know why? Because we don't have thousands of dollars to mail you mailers in the mail. We don't have money for commercials on television. So what we're left with is hitting the ground. But because District 22 is so massive,
Yeah.
this is when you, the voters, can find out, oh, you know what? I was watching a live on the Adams Brothers podcast, and I heard about a girl named Kaysia, a young lady named Kaysia, and you put it on your platform. We all have a platform. So to the Adams Brothers, when I get in, the first, another thing I'm going to do is I'm a strong proponent of overturning Citizens United versus FEC. And what that was a Supreme Court ruling that stated that corporations can be treated as people for the purposes of donations. And the moment we get money out of politics and and they could put unlimited amount of money. So that means someone applying for a job that pays this much
Mhm.
and they're pouring in 20 million. You got to say to yourself, why? Why? Are they pouring that money in because they believe in that candidate, or are they pouring that money in because they know that that candidate has the power to draft legislation and would be loyal to the millions of dollars that they gave them to run this race? Or would I be loyal to the average donation that I got, which averaged about $74? That was
Mhm.
my average, all of the donations that I received. I'm
Mhm.
loyal to my people in District 22. So please do your research.
And
Yeah.
that's I just want to piggyback off of what he said. And I always ask this question, and just piggyback off of what he was saying, that when we have guests on here, I had said that I'm going to ask all of the candidates, will you listen to the people? And I pretty much that's what you just said. You're going to listen to your constituents. So for the
I
people out
have
there,
to.
she says she's going to listen to her constituents, because I'm going to ask every candidate that comes on here, will you listen to the people? Because it's so many tax-paying citizens here in this country and in this city and in this state and county that believe that the politicians today do not listen to them. So
Listen, first of all, when the governor redrew this district, I've never been to Immokalee. I've never been to Pahokee. Matter of fact, I've never been to Naples.
neither have
So
Yeah.
I.
Yeah.
so in order for me to understand this district and talk to you all, I had to go. I
Right.
go every week. I didn't know anything about this district. And I was dedicated to find out, who are these people? And you know, the most sad encounter I had to this day, it's like still etched in my brain. School just started up in Broward County this week, and
Mhm.
then up north in Hendry County. And I was talking to a parent, and she said, "Man, I don't want my kids to go to school." And I was joking with her at first, and I was like, "Oh, I can't wait for my kids to go to school." I said, "I had them all summer." She said, "No." She said, "I don't know if ICE are going to pick them up." I was like, "Whoa." Then I talked to someone else today, matter of fact. It's a young lady. She just got married 2 years, 3 years ago. She has two small children. Her husband was a TPS recipient,
Mhm.
and now that TPS has ended, his job has ended. He cannot afford to take care of his family, and he stays in the house. When I tell you, when I spoke to her today, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I thought about it. I said, first of all, a man wants to be a man, right?
Mhm.
He can't even provide for his children, let alone his wife. He doesn't go outside, she said, because he's afraid he might get picked up, and he'd rather stay in the house and be
Yeah.
with his family. This is what this administration did not figure out. And you know what? They moved too fast. The same thing they did in July of 2025, when they spent $1.8 billion for alligator Alcatraz. You know who
Mhm.
made the most money from that concentration camp? Contractors. You know
Yeah,
who made the most money when they tore it down just last month?
contract.
Contractors. You know what could have been used for that $1.8 billion in this county alone? Now,
Mhm.
TPS, you know what they're doing now? Because the administration didn't think this through. Now they're saying, hold on deporting them. Hold on, let's figure this out. We can't deport them to Venezuela because they just had 2 earthquakes back to back, 16,000 people either missing or dead. So they said, hold up, don't send them there. And then they just said, hold up, don't send them back to Haiti because there's gang wars going on. Hold on, why didn't you think it through before you asked to send them back? So now what they're doing is they're placing ankle monitors on them.
Mhm.
They are
Mm.
dehumanizing these hardworking people, treating them like chattel, treating them like property. It is wrong. So you all need a fighter. You don't need anyone that's, I'm gonna go with the flow. No,
Yep.
no, you need a fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Miss Earley, what is your position on voting rights and election security?
Let me tell you something. No matter how this election goes, I have some concerns, and I will be bringing it up to our Broward Supervisor of Elections. My number one concern, and this happened in Coral Springs location, put that on camera. Out of all the location, the early voting sites, Coral Springs refuses to allow political campaign lawn signs or anything left overnight. So what they do is they pull it all up, they put it by the dumpster, and they tell you, hey, go pick it up. So I had to go pick up the campaign flyers, put them back. So they expect us to go there every day, right? Mind you, we
Mhm.
have different early voting sites. What is the problem? Why are you utilizing your authority? This is an early voting site. And to you, that might be like, oh, but those are lawn signs. What's the big deal? You know what the big deal
Mhm.
is? You have grassroots people who have limited resources, and you're using taxpayer dollars to pay someone to pick up all of those lawn signs every single day.
Yep.
What's the problem? Number
Mhm.
two, voter intimidation, right? Are we
Mhm.
moving backwards? We're requiring identification, and I understand a security concern, right? And now we're requiring more from the voter because they don't want them. There's so much power in your vote. Why do you think being a convicted felon is tied to voting? What does those two have to do with anything?
I know.
You served your
I know.
time, right?
Right.
Everything you do is tied to your vote. They don't want you to vote. You don't vote, you lose your voice. So, one of my strongest proponents is to engage the voters, but also educate them. People cannot be engaged unless they're educated. People cannot be energized unless they're educated. We have to answer their why. Why should I vote? Why does my vote matter? Does it count? Yes, it does. You all know I was here in 2022. I ran for
Yes.
judge
Yep.
and I lost by 200 votes. But do you know this? I didn't tell you guys this. Breaking news on your station. So because it was such a small margin, we had to go back 2 days later to the uh, Broward Supervisor of Elections, and I had to sit there and listen as they counted each vote. They had to throw out hundreds of my votes. You know why? Because the mail-in ballots, they forgot to sign the back
Sign
of
it.
their ballot. So,
Ah.
with that being said, we have to continuously educate. Oh, and by the way, they gave me 3 days to quote, cure the ballot. And in 3 days, I didn't have enough volunteers to get that list and go around and clear the ballot. So, unfortunately, um, we have to educate the voters.
You got a comment, another comment from the audience. Carrie Barber said, "Child care is excessive. If someone works, child care costs should be minimized." What are your thoughts on that, Miss Early?
Miss Barbara, I don't know if you heard when I stated earlier, but I advocate for universal child care, meaning
Mhm.
you should not have to pay for child care the first 3 years because the fourth year is covered by pre-K and the fifth year is covered by kindergarten. So I'm a strong proponent. I'm a mother of four. And I spread my children out 3 years because I knew I couldn't afford childcare and diapers. So I'm a strong proponent of universal health care and universal childcare. And don't tell me the government doesn't have the money when they just sent 4.2 million here and 4.2 million to that country
Mhm.
and billions in weapons and foreign aid. No, you have the money.
Yeah. And I also wanted to just follow up, even when we were talking earlier about people forgetting about voters. And I saw a comment too about when people get to Washington, they forget. Well, many working class people like me feel that politicians talk about the middle class during the election, but don't deliver afterwards. What would you do differently when you are elected into Congress?
You know, my best response to that is look at a person's history and it can tell you who they are. I am a community servant first. I've always been a community servant. Even as a lawyer, over the past 13 years, if I was ever called on to give a seminar to teach legal rights, I always did it for free because my goal, once I saw what the criminal justice system was, which is we have minorities, but they're the majority incarcerated. I'm a double minority. I make up 4% of the legal profession. I wanted more minorities working in the criminal justice system, not being incarcerated. So I've always given back. I grew up in the inner city from a mother who had a single mother, 8 children. So my heart has always been to the inner city to teach them, hey, I grew up with one parent. I was previously incarcerated. I know we didn't talk about that, but we can. And look, I made it. This is my own law firm. And one of my strongest, so to answer your question, I don't just
Mhm,
speak to the middle class. I speak
mhm,
to those that live in below the poverty line, but I also speak to those who worked hard and
mhm,
and I don't like to disregard them because they're quote wealthy because there's
mhm.
people who really worked hard that they pour into the economy as well. So even as a strong proponent, I don't talk about it. I am a community servant. Check my history.
Another question from the audience. Do you support stronger measures to support to lower prescription drugs prices and hold pharmaceutical companies accountable?
It's a great
Of
question.
course, yeah, I spoke about that earlier as well. I talked about specifically for seniors because what's happening is I'll give you a prime example. A few years ago, the diabetic drug was used for diabetes only. What people found out is that diabetic drug was also great for weight
Wait,
loss. So
yeah.
what happened was the copay used to be about $64 for a few injections, and it skyrocketed to $600. I witnessed this with my own eyes, and actually, I thought it was an error. So I called, and they said, "Hey, here's what the pharmaceutical company didn't do. They didn't give me an explanation as to why it jumped so high, and I had no legal recourse. You know what my recourse was? We went through the appeals process through the insurance. We had to get a generic form. So to answer your question, pharmaceutical companies are multi-billion dollar companies. But let me break this down. This is why they have not been regulated. This is why they stay in power. It goes back to the corporate PACs. A corporate PAC is a political action committee that's financed by corporations. It could be any type of corporation. So if I'm running as a politician and this corporate PAC, let's say this is a pharmaceutical company, if they give me $20 million for my campaign, if you look at all these billionaires and millionaires, follow the money, look at their financial treasury reports. It's public information. And then I win. Obviously, I'm going to win because I have more money. I have more TV ads. I get into
Mhm.
Congress. Do you really think I care about you? That's how it
No.
works. Choose the main two questions you need to ask any candidate, even myself.
Mhm.
Did you accept corporate, not a regular PAC? There's a difference.
Right.
A regular PAC is maybe people come together, good fashion people, and they want to give you money to help your campaign. A corporate PAC are big corporations that are backing you. So ask them, hey, did you accept the corporate PAC? First of all, if they lie to you, you have access to that. The second question is how many corporate after the first corporate PAC, you should already know they don't have your best interest. And I stand by that. I stand
Right.
by that.
Let's talk a little bit about foreign policy. And obviously you're going to be dealing with foreign policy as a congresswoman, congressman,
Congresswoman.
woman. You're going to be dealing with foreign policy, and the president imposed tariffs on different countries, and those he according to him it would help the American people. Well, I don't see it because ultimately the American people always end up paying for it in the end. When you go to Walmart and they raise prices up on different things and goods and services, and then Walmart just passed it on down to the consumer. So, would you support additional tariffs on or economic restrictions on China, even if doing so increases prices for American consumers?
Ultimately, tariffs are taxes on imported goods. And one thing I realize is once those taxes are passed on to the distribution corporation, they are in a business of making money. So the only way to meet their bottom line is to pass it on to the consumer.
That's
That's
us.
that's domestic, but that's also international because I have a nonprofit, it's Seeds of Manna, for example. Every Saturday, I volunteer at a local homeless shelter. I get all of the food from Whole Foods. The perishable food goes to the shelter. The non-perishable food I ship to Jamaica, right?
Hmm.
When I get to Jamaica, the amount of money I spend in imported taxes, duty, custom fees, storage, shipping, if I didn't get that food for free, it wouldn't be worth it because you're spending thousands of dollars. That's the reason I'm giving that example because it's the same concept of these terrorists, these foreign terrorists. The consumer ultimately pays the price, but here's the problem. If the consumer is, this is how we have inflation as well. If the consumer is paying more but making less, there's going to be a breaking point because we cannot keep up. We cannot keep up with the imported goods that have these tariffs attached to it. So that is an issue that I definitely intend to address. And I'm on this campaign trail. I spoke to a few people that we're feeling it on every end.
Hmm.
Okay. Wayne, go ahead.
Okay, Miss Earley, what would you do specifically? And I know this question here can sometimes be controversial. What would you do specifically for Black communities in District 22 that you believe the federal government has failed to address?
It's not controversial. It's the truth. You're speaking to someone that's not politically correct, and that's why I always say, when you hear me say I stand by that, play this
Mm-hmm.
video back. I just left Belglade yesterday. Everything's a blur right now. Today's Monday. I left
Yes.
yesterday, and I met with a commissioner up there, and she was passing out popsicles and socks. And we were in the heart of a very impoverished, neglected neighborhood. And when I saw those babies walking up to that cooler to eat a popsicle and get socks, I said, we got to do more. We got to do more. And we have to start with the community. Unfortunately, that community is a predominantly Black community. So when you say, what would I do? I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to feed them fish. I want to teach them how to fish. There's
Right.
ways that they need a community resource center, right? Where they can come in after school and learn how they can be their own publisher to write a book, publish the book, and make money on Amazon. There's a way that we can import STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics back into the community and then give them popsicles and socks as afterwards. But we don't want to give that to them. But the fact that it was even being given, that's what sold my heart. But like I said, I grew up in the inner city. When it's in you, when you have that experience,
That's right.
no one, I don't care how well and successful I become as a lawyer, I'm always giving back because I'm grateful. I shouldn't even
Mm-hmm.
be a lawyer. So what I'm going to do for the Black community, we're going to teach them how to fish.
Mm-hmm. And and I always say that question is controversial because I seen in years past that question was asked to a lot of politicians, even like President Obama, and he said, "Well, we specifically can't do anything for Black people." I'm like,
I'm gonna tell you why.
Yes, you can.
There's two type of politicians I've learned because I apparently I don't say things politically correct. I've been told that I'm a little too aggressive. I need to tone it down. I've
"No, you
gotten
don't."
calls about that. I've gotten calls that Kaysia, you need to change your delivery of how you say things, even though what you're saying is the truth. Um, two type of politicians. I always say either you're doing it for your purpose or you're doing it for more power. And when I say more power, that means you're focused on being reelected. But I've said this from the very beginning. I'd rather be elected one term and tear that house down and rebuild it than and save my integrity for the purpose of my children and my husband than to be reelected and lose my integrity. And that's the thing. If you're always thinking about how can I be reelected or how can I move up this political um, ladder, you're going to be
Mhm.
reserved on what you say. And to each his own. That's just not me.
Right. Me either. People gonna find that out. That's probably why they fighting against me here, in Deerfield. But yes, and this is my final question to you, Miss Earley. Would you support true term limits for members of Congress? And if you would, why or why not?
No, that's too short because Congress is every 2 years. And typically, and this is, I'm learning so much. When I ran for judge, I learned a lot about that secret world that I wouldn't have known unless I ran. I'm learning a lot about Congress. And I'm learning that if I'm elected and I'm a first time Congresswoman, I'm considered
Mhm.
a freshman. So I don't have that big of a voice. That doesn't mean I won't get the job done. So because I didn't get much done in my first 2 years,
Mhm.
what if I get the ball rolling the second term? And what if
Mhm.
I really get that ball rolling? I believe there should be some term limits, but I think that that's
Yeah.
too short.
Right.
Because you want to, but the voters ultimately have the say so. Because if you're really in the community, I don't care if your opponent spends $10 million. The people know you. They're like, we know her. We don't know you, so we're not voting for you. So if you do the work,
Yeah.
stay visible. You don't have to worry about the next term. They're gonna scream for you. They're gonna shout for you. They're
Mhm.
gonna volunteer for you. So I think two term limits is too short, but I do also believe term limits should be implemented. For example, I know a city. I forgot what city it is. This guy has been the commissioner for over 20 years, and I was like, "Oh, y'all don't have term limits here?"
That's Sunrise, or that Sunrise?
Could be Sunrise.
I
Yeah.
think it's Sunrise.
I think it is. Yep. Because I was surprised. I was like, 20 years. What we doing?
And they
So
become
yeah.
career politicians.
Right.
And the same thing here in Deerfield Beach. We having that problem now. We have term limits,
Not
but
true term limits, though.
right, you can run 8 as a commissioner, and then if you want to run for mayor, you can run another 8. Then you go and sit out, and you can 4 years, and you can jump back in. That's not true term limits, and that was not what was promised to the voters. That was some language that they threw in at the end that most people didn't
Crafty
even know
language,
about.
yeah. By
Yeah,
and we have to realize that attorneys, we're dealing with attorneys, and they're very crafty at putting this type of language in there. And
yeah,
sometimes
but
people,
there's
that
some.
when you don't read, that's what happens.
Yeah,
Thank
gotta
you,
read.
but let me tell you one thing about there are some good and bad lawyers out there, but it's the way contracts are drafted, shall or and.
Yep,
I
remember
remember
I
when I
told
went
you
to
The
that.
law
Yep,
school,
may,
language.
that
shall, may.
language, yep,
Yep.
it depends on the language that's in there. But I tell you what, I've learned a lot, even on this second time campaign trail, and I'm like, I, I don't want to be that person.
Yep.
And so for me, I'm constantly just listening to a gospel sermon. I'm reading my word because that's who I am at the core. When you ask me who I was, I always say I'm a Proverbs 31 woman. I have my flaws, I have my shortcomings, but I'm
Mhm.
always running to my Father, my Lord, my Savior, Jesus Christ. And no matter what I do, I've been named top 10, top 20, top 100, top 40 attorney. No matter how I'm a legal analyst on Court TV, I've been
Mhm.
given that, but I've never lost who I am at the core. I'm a daughter of the one true living King. That's who I am. So no matter where I am in life, whether I become a politician or not, I never want to lose my salvation because what profits a man to gain the whole world,
Yeah.
power,
Jesus.
position, and lose their soul?
Yeah.
So that is my message. And what's in you comes out. And that's been
Mhm.
my message as a lawyer. That's been my message as a community servant. I stay with God and he will direct my path. So that's who I am.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Miss Early. So
One more question.
I'm gonna put a question up, and then I'll have my closing question. I already put two of hers up. Let me put this one back up. Concerning TPS, how can Haiti and others be better if the citizens continue to abandon their countries? I think immigrants should have a way to work in America and return home 3 to 6 months annually at their expense, and they need to pay tax in America for that time here. That country and America benefits. What are your thoughts on that?
That's from Carrie
That's from
Barber.
First
Carrie
of
Barber.
all, the working TPS recipients are law-abiding immigrants who are paying their taxes. That's what I said in the beginning, that because there's lost wages, we're going to lose about $110 million in taxes from immigrants alone. Number two, her question is, how can Haiti be better if everyone's fleeing? Well, how can they survive? That was the purpose of TPS. TPS was created in 1990 as a temporary protected status for countries involved in natural disasters, or in this case, political uprising or political strongholds by who's overtaken the government. In this case, it's gang wars, right? So it's temporary. But if they want a path for citizenship, I'm pretty sure they would love to go back home. But what is there to go back to? It's not. It's a difficult question to answer, because essentially you're telling them, yes, we acknowledge that you fled, but you still should go home. No. If they want a path to citizenship, they did it the right way. They didn't sneak
Right.
in, they were vetted. So no, we're not going to treat them anything less than human, with dignity, respect, because everyone is owed that.
Okay. And one more question from the audience. Patricia Saunders said, do you support stronger ethic rules for members of Congress, including limits on stock trading and lobbying?
Yes, yes, and yes. And throw in Citizens United, throw in corporate PACs. Yes. Let me tell y'all something. Let me tell you something. I'm saying it. Tell the truth, shame the devil. Being a congresswoman or a congressman, I didn't even know how much, quote, power you have until I started talking to people. I just wanted to run. I was like, I'm a lawyer. I know how to write law. Let me run. When I found out, because I couldn't understand, how is it that a person who's a billionaire or a millionaire, why are you running for a position that doesn't pay a lot of money? I just didn't understand until they have so much power and they get perks on the back. And this is why our government will continue to be corrupt unless we put limits on stock, on corporate PACs, on lobbyists. If not, we're going to have the same old, same old. So that's why research your candidates. And I'm going to give a shout out. I'm saying it. I'm giving a shout out to Angie Nixon. I met her on the campaign trail. When I say she's for the people, she will speak on a live that has, 20 followers. It doesn't matter. You want to speak to her, she's there. Those are the type of people that are in your face. Those millionaires, you're going to see them on TV. You're going to get flyers in the mail. You're not going to see them out in the streets because they're lazy. Right. Like I told you, I just left campaigning for almost 7 hours this morning. Sweat just tight in the sun. I'm 2 shades darker. You don't see those millionaires out there. They don't have time for you guys. You all, that's not who they want to represent. They want power. They want to be called Mr. Congressman. They want the perks. They don't want to work for the people. Please stop being fooled. Please stop being fooled.
And I don't know why we, as a community, Black people, we are enamored with people with power. I never understood that people, even before Donald Trump got elected, it's like it was so many in our community was just enamored with his power, with his success, and like they say, everything that glitters isn't gold.
They're looking for a savior. They're looking for that civil rights guy to rise up. Instead, they should be looking and researching and being their own advocate. You have a platform. You don't have to be on TV. You don't have to be on social media. Start small with your family. Make sure everyone in your household is registered, and then make sure they actually vote. Then expand it. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your friends. Talk to your colleagues. That's what happened in the civil rights era. If you notice, they practice before they perform. What do I mean by that? They practiced before they went to the counters. They had their colleagues and their brothers slapped them, they spat upon them because they had to prepare themselves psychologically before they went to war. We have to prepare ourselves before the next election cycle. Stop being reactive. We need to be proactive. You know, another election cycle is coming up because you can't vote for me now if you didn't register by July
Right.
20th. So start for these next 2 years, start small, expand, expand, expand. Practice and the performance will be the next election day. We got to do it.
Okay, Miss Earley. Now, my final question for you. The voters, they've heard politicians tell them what they want to hear for decades. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And there's a lot of broken promises. So give us one reason why we should trust you with the power of a congressional office.
Because I'm a proven servant. I believe a great leader has mastered serving first. And that's what I do. I'm still doing it. Tomorrow I have to go to pick up the food and go to the homeless shelter while I'm campaigning. And it's not going to be posted because I'm not doing it for likes, right?
Publicity.
Come on. We're not. Now, there's sometimes I do post my charity giveaway because that's how I've been getting donations. It costs money to ship it.
Right.
But I go to the jail at the end of this week to visit my client. I can't post that.
Right.
But I'm not just visiting my client, giving him his legal update. I'm pouring into him because they're sad. They're depressed. They lost hope. So when you talk about, okay, I heard this before, yeah, you want to run for Congress, but what you gonna do for me? I'm going to continue to serve. The only reason I put myself in the fire. I have a successful practice. I have to shut it down when I run for Congress. I had my practice for 10 years. I haven't taken any clients for the past month and a half because I want to focus on this campaign. I have proven myself that I am a servant. Don't judge me with the same heart with all these fake and phonies. Because you can research Kaysia, you can see my story. I came from the bottom up. And for those of you who don't know my story, real brief, you can type in my first and last name in Amazon and read the book. It's called Houses Built by Faith. 24 years ago, I was in a jail cell, solitary confinement. I was incarcerated while pregnant because I was working at a shoe store giving my friends a discount. I knew it was wrong. I just didn't think that was a definition of embezzlement. And in my jail cell, the Spirit of the Lord visited me. And the Spirit of the Lord impressed upon my heart and said, when you get out of jail, you rededicate your life back to me, you'll be a lawyer. So when I tell you, ever since that time that it manifested, I became a lawyer, not just any lawyer, top lawyer. I felt indebted to my community to give back. The only reason I jumped into this race, truth be told, had I not jumped into this race, the person would have won by default. She lives in a different community. She doesn't even live in this community. I put myself through the fire. The least you can do is vote. And so I get passionate about this because I'm saying to myself, I spend 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, traveling District 22, not for me, because guess what? When this race is over, I go back to my successful practice. I'm doing this for the community. I'm trying to do this the right way. And so what am I going to do for you? I'm going to continue to serve. What are you going to do? Are you going to vote? Are you going to tell someone? So stop looking for handouts what are you going to do for me? How about you help out? Research these candidates. Volunteer a few hours. We need your help.
Watch our
I have 6
podcast.
districts. Yes. I'm going to share this podcast. Help. We need your help. And if my aggressiveness is too much, well, guess what? I need to be aggressive when I go to DC and not play with these career politicians who are playing with your money. So please, my name is Kaysia Earley, and I'm asking everyone to vote early for Earley.
And I was just getting ready to close you out, but you did it so eloquently, and with passion, and I love your passion.
Hold your book up back there too. I'm gonna order your book off Amazon. I just looked on there. I saw it's $30. I'm gonna order.
Oh, and the my nonprofit manner. So whatever money I make from here, I use that to help me ship the items over because, hey, it's for them.
And
But you will be blessed by it. You will be blessed by it.
We'd like to get you to sign that book for us, and
Yes.
hopefully we will see your face and up in Congress here. Kaysia Earley, her name is going to appear on the primary election ballot on August 18th. Early voting has started. Tell them they could go. Early voting started
Early
on the
voting
8th
has
and
already
ends on.
started. Yeah, it ends on the 16th. Then there's one day, which is the 17th, no voting, and then the 18th is the big day. But don't wait till the 18th. Anything could happen on that day. You can get sick, bedridden. Go now. Vote early for early. Go, and if you see me, if you want to know, Kaysia, where you going to go? I'm about to vote for you. If you're in District 22, I'm accessible. Go to my Instagram, Kaysia Earley, DM me, and I will tell you where I'm at, and I might just grab you so you can give me a few minutes of your time. So please, Kaysia Earley for Instagram and Facebook, or Kaysia Earley for Congress.com.
And how could they donate to your campaign if for the viewers out there watching right now?
The last day to donate, I believe, is on the 13th, so you have a few more days. Go to Kaysia, KaysiaEarley for Congress.com.
And what are your social media handles?
First and last name, Kaysia Earley. That's for Facebook and Instagram. And be sure to tag me on this, because I'm sharing this with everyone. They can't say they didn't know, because you gave me an hour, man. Come on now.
Yeah. And on my campaign page as running for commissioner in Deerfield Beach, I have been putting all of your literature, everything. I just put your book up just now. It's called Campaign to Elect Wayne Adams. And I just put your book up, and I'm definitely going to order your book off Amazon, because I know someone was in a similar situation like that, where they were at a store and they were giving it away. And luckily they ain't never put me at that cash register like that, because I probably would have been there, because I probably would have, I know my friends would have came through and I would have did the same thing.
Come on. Yeah. Listen, houses built by faith, jailhouse, God's house, courthouse, to the congressional house.
All right. We have been talking to candidate for Congress in the 22nd Congressional District, Miss Kaysia Earley. She's an attorney here in Florida, the South Florida area. She answered all of our questions with passion and
sincerity,
and very sincere when she answered them. So we want to thank you for coming on our podcast for the second time. And we hope to see you back here when you win, to come back and chop it up with us here on our podcast. We love to chop it up here, you know?
Yeah, you will. And I'll definitely come back, because I'm always in the community. And for all of your viewers, you will get a free tax card. Just DM me. These are your legal rights. So when you get pulled over by the cops, you'll know what to say. The goal is to make it home safe. These are your constitutional rights. You're supposed to put in your visor when you get pulled over. It's called TRAPS. Arrive alive, make it home safe.
I definitely like to get one of those, some of those from you.
And give to some of my family members.
Yes.
I'm going to text you the electronic version, and you can repost it, because I've given out over 50,000 for free all across the U.S. So I'm always giving back.
Kaysia Earley, thank you so very much. Good luck to you in the primary election on August the 18th. She's asking for your vote. Thank you for joining us here on the award-winning Adams Brothers podcast, and we hope to see you back here soon. Good luck to you, man.
Thank you to the Adams Brothers podcast. God bless.
You're welcome. Have a good rest of your evening, and good luck to you.
I sure will. Same to you.
All right. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with the Pop-Up Podcast.